Sawubona mngani, welcome back to Zulu Lessons with me, Thando, the place for modern conversational Zulu language lessons. Mngani, I'm going to read to you some sentences that are part of a true story, so a real life story that happened on the 16th of June in 1976. This should then also serve to you as a warning that even though I am not going to get into the gruesomeness of the topic, but maybe you might just not be at the right place at this moment to listen to a story like that, then it is time for you to close or end this video. So we are going to then listen to the story of what happened on that day during the 16th of June, 1976, and the days surrounding that date. And also, we then go in depth to the vocabulary now, the nouns and the verbs that we get into this from this story. This is not a lesson that will be teaching you pronunciation. If you're looking for that, you need to then look in the description box for the link to that lesson. I will also provide you with the actual full lesson, as in all the sentences that I've written for this lesson, and their translations and the vocabulary and the translation of the vocabulary and how to use those words in sentences in spoken language. You will find all of that in the link in the description box. But for a more detailed language lesson, go to my website, zululessons.com, and sign up for the course there. So I will be reading the sentences to you in isiZulu, but I will also write the English translation of the sentences on the screen in blue. So get your language learning notebook out and your pen and get ready to write and practice as you go along with the lesson. Pause the video at any time so that you can write down your own sentences or even the same sentences that I am saying without looking at the subtitle, and see if you can actually write them yourself. Let's go on with the lesson. Uhulumeni wobandlululo wawubaphethe ngonya abantu abansundu. Ulusha lwangaleso sikhathi lwase lukhathele ukunikwa imfundo esezingeni eliphansi. Ngaphezu kwalokho, lo hulumeni wabe sewuthi kumele abafundi bafundiswe izifundo ezimbili ngolimi lwesiBhunu. Ukhumbule njalo mfundi ukuthi babefunda isiBhunu nesingisi kanye nolimi lwasekhaya. Lokho akwehlanga kahle kubafundi baleso sikhathi. Base bekhathele impela ukuhlukunyezwa. Cabanga nje nawe usufundiswa izibalo ngesiBhunu. Angisayiphathi-ke eyesayensi. Phela kuthiwa abantwana bafunda kangcono uma befundiswa ngolimi lwebele, noma sithi ulimi lwasekhaya. Imfundo eyayenzelwe abantu abansundu kwakuthiwa yiBantu education, obizwa ngomsunguli wahulumeni wobandlululo, uHendrik Verwoerd, wake wathi, ngizofunda ngesingisi. There is no place for the Bantu in the European community above the level of certain forms of labor. He continued, what is the use of teaching the Bantu child mathematics when it cannot use it in practice? Ngolwethu ulimi lokhu kuthi, ayikho indawo yabantu abansundu emphakathini wabase-Europe okungephezu kwezinga elithize lemisebenzi. Mngani, ngaleso sikhathi abamhlophe babezibiza ngama-European. Waqhubeka wathi kunamsebenzi muni ukufundisa ingane yomuntu izibalo uma ingeke izisebenzise. Umfundi uTsheletsi Mashinini esebenzisana nabanye abafundi bacabanga indlela enokuthula abangatshengisa ngayo ukuthi abahambisani nalesi sinqumo salohulumeni. Baqhamuka nesu lokuthi babhikishe. uMashinini wayelungise inkulumo ayezoyethula emhlanganweni wabafundi ngomhla ka-13 June ngawo-1976. Le nkulumo yabagqugquzela abafundi ukuthi baphume ngobuningi babo ngalolo lwesithathu lwangomhla ka-16 enyangeni yaJuni ngonyaka wa-1976. Umbhikisho wawuhlelelwe ukuthi ube emigaqweni yaseSoweto kanye namanye amalokishi. Izinkulungwane nezinkulungwane zabafundi zabhikisha ngalelo langa. Amaphoyisa awo uhulumeni wobandlululo afika eSoweto, ahambela eduze kwazo izingane zesikole ngesikhathi zibhikisha. Kwathi besabhikisha ngokuthula abafundi, bezwa ngezibhamu ziduma ngapha nangapha. Mngani, kubaluleke kakhulu ukuthi wazi lokhu. Izingane lezi zazibhikisha ngokuthula. Zingaphethe zikhali, zingasabisi muntu. Zabaleka, zashona ngapha nangapha. Zibalekela izibhamu zawo lamaphoyisa encindezelo. Ezinye izingane zawa zasala lapho phansi. Zadutshulwa khona lapho phansi. Ezinye zezingane zathi zibaleka zadutshulwa emhlane. Umuntu onjani nje okwazi ukuthatha isibhamu adubule izingane? Ngithanda nje ukugcizelela la. Abafundi babebhikisha ngokuthula. Abantu ababulalwa ngalelo langa nasezinsukwini ezilandela lezo baphakathi kwesibalo sama-200 kuya kwinkulungwane. Umnumzane uSam Nzima, owayengumthwebuli wezithombe phecelezi iphotographer, wayeseSoweto ngaleli langa, amaphoyisa ethela abantwana besikole ngezinhlamvu. Ngesikhathi amaphoyisa obandlululo esedubula abafundi, uBaba uNzima waqasha komunye umuzi oseduzane. Yilokhu akutshela intatheli yebhuku leForbes ngo-2014. Ngaphuma endlini, amaphoyisa ayesemile ukudubula. Ngabona ingane encane iwela phansi. Nangu umfana omude, uMbuyisa Makhubu, eqhamuka emphakamisa lo mntwana. Wathi emphakamisa uMbuyisa, ngashutha izithombe ngekhamera yami. Leso sithombe asishuthayo ngaleso sikhathi yiso esagcwala umhlaba wonke. Yiso esazisa umhlaba wonke ngenkohlakalo ebhekiswe kubantu abansundu eyayenzeka eNingizimu Afrika. Esithombeni kukhona uMbuyisa Makhubu ophethe umzimba kaHector Peterson, umfanyana owayeneminyaka ewu-12, kanye nodadewabo kaHector, u-Antoinette, owayegijima eceleni komzimba wamfowabo ekhala. Izidumbu zabantwana zazisakazeke yonke indawo. Uma ubuka izithombe, uyazibonela nje nawe ukuthi kwakuyizingane lezi. Zibhikisha kufanele ngoba zasezikhathele ukuhlukunyezwa yilo hulumeni. Wathi umfundisi uMartin Luther King Jr., umbhikisho wulimi lwabantu abangalalelwe. zenza into ekwakumele ziyenze izingane, ngoba nesiZulu siyasho ukuthi ingane engakhali ifela embelekweni. Uma ufuna ukufunda kabanzi ngalolu suku, vakashela i-Hector Peterson Memorial and Museum eSoweto. Nali ikheli lakhona. Mina-ke mngani, sengaya kaningi kule ndawo yesikhumbuzo. Kodwa inhliziyo yami ayideli, ngoba ngifisa sengathi ngingababona bonke abafa ukuze mina ngibe nekusasa eliqhakazile. Ngibabonge ngendlela efanelekile. Siyawabonga amadela kufa angalesiya sikhathi. Otsiyetsi Mashinini, Antoinette Peterson, Mbuyisa Makhubu, Hastings Ndlovu. Ngeke ngakwazi ukubabala bonke. Mngani, ngicela usubscribe. The following are some words that you heard from the story of June 16, 1976. Let us start with some of the verbs. I will translate the verb into English, then we will look at it more closely. After this, we'll then tackle the nouns in the story. I must just add that this is a difficult topic for me to write about, and so I have decided that I will be throwing in some positive sentences and phrases here and there, just to console my own heart a bit. Phatha, phatha. Phatha is to carry, to hold, to handle. Let's use it in a sentence. Ngizophatha isikhwama esinsundu. Ngizophatha isikhwama esinsundu. I will carry a brown bag. There could also even be handbag, isikhwama. But really, isikhwama is just any bag whatsoever. But no one speaks like this. No one will say to you, ngizophatha isikhwama esinsundu. I'm just using esinsundu, that word, that color, on purpose because we have it in the story. So I want you to see how else to conjugate the color so that it matches the noun that it is describing. So anyway, people normally say most colors in English nowadays. The colors people often say in isiZulu are white, black, and red. That is most people, not every single person who is Zulu, but most people, white, black, and red. There is a link in the description box for the lesson on colors. Another meaning of the verb phatha is to deal with, to treat, to control, to manage. For example, uyiphathe kahle imali yakho. Uyiphathe kahle imali yakho. You must manage your money well. You could say you must take care of your money as well. But the conjugation that you saw in the story is this one. Uhulumeni wobandlululo wawubaphethe ngonya abantu abansundu. Baphethe. As you can see there, that both A's have changed to E's. When we speak of something that is past continuous, something that has just happened and is continuing to happen, we change both A's of the verb to E's for this verb, phatha, to phethe. As we see in the story, the apartheid government was doing and continuing to do, as in handling African people in a cruel manner. There are a few verbs that do this, like the verb lala. As you can see here, we've got two A's in each syllable has A's. So to say I am sleeping, we don't say ngiyalala. Saying ngiyalala is like saying I fall asleep, I do sleep, you know, but it doesn't actually say I am sleeping. To say I am sleeping, you say ngilele. So I'm already sleeping and I am continuing to sleep. This conjugation can look like this is something that has already taken place and done, but this is still happening. So when you speak of something that has already been done and dealt with, so over, past tense, you would say ngiphathe, right? Or babephathe isikhwama. So that's done with, it's over, it's not continuing. And for sleeping, ngilale kahle, I slept well. So it's past, I'm up now. Here is another sentence example of the verb phatha with the verbal extension ana. Kumele siphathane ngothando ukuze ilizwe lethu libe nokuthula. Kumele siphathane ngothando ukuze ilizwe lethu libe nokuthula. We have to treat each other with love so that our country can have peace. Please, ngiyacela. Nika, nika. Nika is to give. We will use this verb in the negative present tense now, just so that you can see how it looks. Here's our example. Ulunya alukuniki ukuthula. Ulunya alukuniki ukuthula. Cruelty doesn't give you peace. Khathala. Khathala. Khathala is to be tired, to be fed up. Let's use it in a sentence so that you can see. Sengiyakhathala ke wena manje. Sengiyakhathala ke wena manje. I'm getting tired of you now. However, to say I am tired, it doesn't look like this at all. Here it is. Ngikhathele. Ngikhathele. I am tired. It behaves the same way as the verb phatha and lala. This verb khathala, used like this, is a stative verb, ngikhathele. It is telling of the state that I am in at the moment, the state of tiredness. Ukhathele, you are tired right now. Ehla, ehla. Ehla is to go down, to descend, to disembark. The noun ukwehla, ukwehla is from this verb. It is a verbal noun that comes from the verb ehla. So when you now have uku, if you think of the class 8 nouns, you have that prefix uku, but the verb that you are working with is ehla, so it starts with the letter E. It then causes that E to turn to a W. So we don't just put in a W between the two parts of the word, but we change the U to a W. Ukwehla. So ukwehla is going down. Remember I said the verb ehla is to go down. Now I'm saying going down, descending, disembarking. So notice how the translated words all end in an ing, because these are verbal nouns. Class 8 nouns are verbal nouns, what others call gerunds. These are verbs that can be used as both the subject of the sentence and the object of the sentence. This class 8 noun, it doesn't have a plural because class 8 nouns don't have a plural. And so because they are uncountable. Let us then use this verbal noun in a sentence. In South Africa, if you are taking a South African taxi, so a minibus taxi, to ask to get off the taxi, you must shout out, so call out to the driver, memeza, to the driver, alerting him that you want to get off the taxi. Like this. Mshayeli, ngicela ukwehla ekhoneni. Mshayeli, ngicela ukwehla ekhoneni. Driver, may I please get off at the corner? Now, yes, they are drivers, but there are some people who don't want to be called by their profession and say mshayeli, so, or driver. So they want to be called booty instead. But if you can see that the person is much older than you, old enough to be your father, just say baba as a sign of respect. But if you think they are younger than that, then say booty. Hlukumeza. Hlukumeza. Hlukumeza is to abuse, to ill-treat. So when we make this verb into a noun, a verbal noun, it is ukuhlukumeza. Ukuhlukumeza. So abusing, ill-treating. It is then a class 8 noun, a gerund. Here is an example of this verbal noun in a sentence. Musani ukuhlukumeza abantwana. Musani ukuhlukumeza abantwana. Don't abuse the children. Don't ill-treat the children. Another example of this verb, amaphoyisa ayehlukumeza abafundi. Amaphoyisa ayehlukumeza abafundi. The police were abusing the students. In this story, we saw this verb used in this form, hlukunyezwa, hlukunyezwa. Here, we have used the verbal extension or the verbal derivative, isijobelelo, wa, a W-A. In isiZulu, we call it impambosi yokwenziwa. This is a passive verb. The root verb, hlukumeza, is used to show what the subject of the sentence is doing to the object of the sentence. Let's say that example again. Amaphoyisa ayehlukumeza abafundi. Amaphoyisa ayehlukumeza abafundi. Amaphoyisa are the subject of the sentence. Abafundi are the object of the sentence. So we see who is doing the abusing here. It is the police, so the subject. And who is being abused, it is the students, the object of the sentence. But how do we get to hlukunyezwa though? From hlukumeza. This verbal extension, WA, changes some of the verbs it is used on. Not all verbs it is used on, but some. For example, in this verb, this is how it changes it. When the verb's last syllable and or the verb's second to last syllable are an M, then we change that M to an NY, ny, when you add the verbal extension wa to the verb. Then the verb becomes hlukunyezwa. The ending, you simply remove the last vowel of the verb and replace that with a WA. Now the verb is no longer to abuse or to ill-treat. The verb is now to be abused, to be ill-treated. So this action is being done to the subject of the sentence. Look at the use of the verbs side by side. So both hlukumeza and hlukunyezwa. With hlukumeza, we said, uhulumeni wobandlululo wawuhlukumeza abantu abantsundu. For hlukumeza, we'll say this. Uhulumeni wobandlululo wawuhlukumeza abantu abantsundu. The apartheid government abused or ill-treated African people. Now let's use hlukunyezwa. Abantu abantsundu babehlukunyezwa uhulumeni wobandlululo. Abantu abantsundu babehlukunyezwa uhulumeni wobandlululo. African people were being abused or ill-treated by the apartheid government. In the sentence on the left, the verb is telling us something that is being done by the subject. In the sentence on the right, the verb is telling us something that is done to the subject. Another example of a similar verb is memeza. Memeza. Memeza is to scream, to shout, memeza. I'm sure you can see that what we spoke of in the previous verb, hlukumeza, applies here because the second to last syllable is also an M. That M will change to an NY when we add the verbal extension wa. The verb will no longer be memeza. It will now be menyezwa. Menyezwa. Let us look at examples of both. The verb in its root form, memeza, and the verb with the verbal extension or derivative wa, menyezwa. We will start with the root form, memeza. Here's the example. Iphoyisa limemeza abantu. Iphoyisa limemeza abantu. The police officer is shouting at or screaming at the people. The subject of the sentence, iphoyisa, is the one that is doing something to the object of the sentence, abantu. Here's our next example, menyezwa. Abantu bamenyezwa iphoyisa. Abantu bamenyezwa iphoyisa. This is still the same sentence in a way. It is still telling the same thing, that the police officer is shouting at the people. But we are just saying it differently. We are now saying the people are being shouted at by the police officer. In the second sentence, we have swapped around the subject and the object of the sentence. Tshengisa, tshengisa. Tshengisa is to show. Also, bonisa. If you think about the word bona, which is to see. So if I then put the ending isa and I say bonisa, then now I am saying show someone something. So if I want to say show gogo your report card, bonisa ugogo iripoti lakho. Bonisa ugogo iripoti lakho. But then I can also say, use this very same word and say tshengisa. Tshengisa ugogo iripoti lakho. Umfundi utshengisa ugogo iripoti lakhe. The student is showing grandma his or her report card. So that word tshengisa and bonisa are saying exactly the same thing. However, bonisa, the root verb is bona, whereas tshengisa, this is it. The verb is tshengisa. There is no removing the isa and being left with some weird word. No, you don't remove the isa. This is it. Lungisa. lungisa is to prepare. So, for example, let's say, let's use it in a sentence and say, sizolungisa yonke imininingwane edingekayo. Sizolungisa yonke imininingwane edingekayo. We will prepare all the necessary details, or we will prepare all the information that is required. Ethula. Ethula. Ethula is to present. It is to deliver, for example, a speech. Ethula. Now, let me say this in a sentence so you can hear it better. Uzoyethula yedwa inkulumo. Uzoyethula yedwa inkulumo. He will present the speech by himself. Ugquzela. Ugquzela. Ugquzela is to encourage. It is to motivate. Let me use it in a sentence. Ngiyanikugquzela futhi nginifaka inselela yokuthi nifunde kabanzi ngomlando wezwe lethu. Ngiyanikugquzela futhi nginifaka inselela. Inselela is a challenge. Yokuthi nifunde kabanzi ngomlando wezwe lethu. I encourage you and I am challenging you to learn in depth about our country's history. Ngiyakugqugquzela mngani ukuthi usubscribe. Phuma. Phuma. Phuma is to come out, to exit. You'll often see it also on the doors and the exit doors in buildings, where you will see the word exit in big red letters sometimes. You will then also see Phuma as well if the area has more people who speak isiZulu. Then you'll see the word Phuma there as well. Let's use it in a sentence. Ngicela uphume uphele la. Ngicela uphume uphele la. Please get out of here. Ngicela uphume uphele la. That uphele part is like completely, but it means to finish. It's like to finish yourself, to just get rid of yourself. Hlela. Hlela. Hlela is to organize. It is to arrange. Uhlelo, a noun, uhlelo, comes from this verb, hlela. It is a program. Izinhlelo, programs. Because you can see that is a class 6 noun, so the singular and the plural. So the verb is hlela. Baluleka. Baluleka is to be important. Kubalulekile ukuthi uwazi umlando wakho. Kubalulekile ukuthi uwazi umlando wakho. It is important that you know your history. And yes, I do realize that I'm probably mispronouncing the word important. I always mispronounce it. Gcizelela. Gcizelela. Gcizelela is to emphasize, to drive a point. Gcizelela. Sala. Sala is to remain. We used it in the story talking about ezinye izingane zasala lapho phansi, how some of the children were left laying on the ground, having been shot at by these cruel police. So it's the same verb, sala, that you say when you're saying goodbye and you are the one who's leaving and the other person is remaining behind. So you're saying goodbye or remain well. Sala kahle. Asha, asha. Asha is to hide. And we used this verb when we were talking about Babu Semzima, the photographer, and we said that he had to hide a little bit because there was shooting all over the place. And then he came out, and at that moment, there was Mbuyisa Makubu picking up the lifeless body of Hector Peterson. So that word is Asha, to hide. So when you then want to say you are hiding from, so hiding from someone, hiding from something, then you would say, shela. You add the verbal extension or verb derivative, ELA, isijobelelo, sempambosi yokwenzela, shela. So now I want to just share with you another word, though, that is having an extra derivative or extension to it, to this one. So we've now said asha, which is to hide, ashela, to hide from. Now, if we then add to ashela and we add a and a, so that verbal extension ana. Now we have the word ashelana. That's still a verb, ashelana, but now we are hiding from each other, because remember, ana, that verbal extension is doing something to each other. It's reciprocal, whatever is happening. So now we are hiding from each other. Now, the game hide and seek in isiZulu is umacashelana. Umacashelana, that's hide and seek. There is no seek in the name of the game, of course. As you can tell, it's just simply hiding from each other. But of course, we know that we are then also going to then go and look for the other person. Dubula, dubula. Dubula is to shoot. Amaphoyisa e-apartheid ayedubula abantu abantsundu. Amaphoyisa e-apartheid ayedubula abantu abantsundu. The apartheid police were shooting at African people. One of the ways I used this verb in the story, it didn't exactly look like this. That B was a TSH. This is because we've spoken about this already, talking about the verb hlukunyezwa and the verb menyezwa, that when we add the verbal extension WA, impambosi yokwenziwa, when we add that WA to a verb, some verbs change a bit. Just like we were talking about those ones that have the second to last and or the last syllable as just M and a vowel, then those change to an NY. Here we have a B, just a B on its own with a vowel. So not a B with another consonant. So this B on its own, because we want to put the verbal extension wa at the end of the verb, then it's going to change that B, that is the second to last syllable here. It is changing it to TSH. We are, of course, remember, still adding that WA at the end of the verb. Now we have tuchulwa, tuchulwa. This action now is happening to the subject of the sentence. So let me make an example with this. Let me make an example. Ubabu Krisani watutulwa ngu Janusz Walus. I don't know how to pronounce this man's name. Actually, I don't really care, but something like Janusz Walus. Anyway, Ubabu Krisani watutulwa ngu Janusz Walus. So we are saying that this happened to Babu Krisani. Not that Babu Krisani is doing this to someone else. No. As soon as the verb has that verbal extension, wa, then this action now is happening to the subject of the sentence. Dubula, duchulwa. Shooter, shooter. Shooter is borrowed from English. It is to shoot with a camera, so to take a photo with a camera. I'm sure you would remember that in the past, maybe say in the 80s and 90s, we used to say shoot, when you're taking a photo. And so we borrow that word and use it and say shooter, as in take a photo. We still actually use this word to say take a photo. We still use this word shooter. I must tell you though, as children, say teenagers actually, we used to play around with the verb, because if you then say it in English, when you say ngicela ungishuthe, ngicela ungishuthe, please take a photo of me. But really, if you were to translate that to English, it's please shoot me, So then we would say shoot, as in take the photo. Anyway, sakaza. Sakaza is to scatter. I could also add haphazardly. It's broadcasting. Think of being in the garden, in the field, and you want to plant maybe a huge field. Say, for example, you want to plant 1 acre of land. And so then you are walking around with your seeds, your bag of seeds, and you are cascading them or broadcasting them in the field, not necessarily making little holes and putting the seeds in each hole. So that is sakaza. If I take a bunch of papers and I throw them out like this in the air and I go all over crazy like that, that is ukusakaza amaphepha. So just throwing them and scattering the papers. So that verb sakaza, to scatter haphazardly, it is also to broadcast, like I said. So we also then use it to talk about broadcasting, as in on television or on radio. So, of course, you know that we can take a verb and turn it into a class 1 noun. So saying a person who does that action. Just like we did with umsunguli. Umsunguli, we worked backwards to find the verb sungula that the noun comes from. So here we now have the verb. Let's then make it into a class 1 noun. A class 1 noun, singular class 1 noun, will have the prefix or umu. But we have to decide which one it is. You use the so the 2 letters only. You use that prefix for nouns that have more than 1 syllable in the root of the noun. And then you use the one with umu with 3 letters for nouns that only have 1 syllable in the root of the noun. That's why we say umuntu and not umtu. So now we want to then add that because this one is obviously going to be because we have 3 syllables, sakaza. And then at the end of the verb, we remove that a and we replace it with an I. Now we have a noun, a class 1 noun, umsakazi. Umsakazi is a broadcaster, someone, so you can say a radio show presenter, a TV show presenter. So let's have a sentence here made. Ubabu dithi Ngwenya wayengumsakazi wokhozi FM. Ubabu dithi Ngwenya wayengumsakazi wokhozi FM. So Mr. Ditingwenya was a presenter at Ukhozi FM. Or you could say Babu Ditingwenya was an Ukhozi FM presenter. Dela is to be satisfied. So to be satisfied, to be convicted. And let me use it in a sentence so you can see, you can appreciate it better. Emshadweni sayidla inyama saze sadela. Emshadweni sayidla inyama saze sadela. At the wedding, we ate the meat to our heart's content, or we ate the meat till we were satisfied, which is actually a big deal with gatherings amaZulu. If you are having a wedding, for example, make sure you've got food before you worry about your dress or all these things, the hall, the venue, whatever. Make sure you're going to have enough food to feed the people, because umshado ngokudla. If we don't eat enough, then yeah, that was not a great wedding. And now the nouns that we found in the story. Yes, I will do the same. We will translate the nouns into English and then look at the noun a little more closely, maybe use it in a sentence or show you other ways that we can play around with the noun. Izibalo, it's maths. It's a plural noun, a class 4 noun, the singular of which is isibalo. However, isibalo is not maths. It is an equation, a total number of something, a figure or an amount, isibalo. The verb that this noun comes from is bala. Bala is to count. It is to calculate. However, most people don't use the word izibalo for maths anymore. Nowadays, people just say e-maths. Umsunguli. Let's strip this noun and work backwards to find out what its verb is or what verb it comes from. Of course, to do that, then we have to remove the prefix, that is and then change that last vowel from an I to an A. The reason we do that is because we know that almost all verbs in isiZulu end with an A. So chances are that this verb has the letter A at the end. Now we have sungula. Sungula is to start something, to initiate, to launch. Sungula. So when we say someone is umsunguli, we are saying that the person is an initiator, so the one who starts the new thing. So umuntu odala into ebingekho, so like someone who is creating something that was never there before. Umsunguli is an inventor, a founder, an originator. It is a class 1 noun, so then the plural is abasunguli. Hence we had said uFerwood ubizwa ngomsunguli we-apartheid, because that is what he was called in English, an architect of apartheid. One of those words that are taken from verbs in class 1. Inkulumo. Inkulumo is a speech. It's a class 5 noun. It's singular. So the plural is inkulumo. The verb that this noun comes from is kuluma. Kuluma is to talk, to speak. In the story, I used the word inkulumo to talk about Tsietsi Mashinini's speech. I want to use it differently now. Say you were talking to me and I wanted to tell you that I didn't like what you said. The word I would use for what you said is inkulumo. It is not necessarily a speech in this case, but your statements. Angiyithandanga inkulumo yakho. Angiyithandanga inkulumo yakho. I didn't like what you said. Izinga. Izinga. Izinga is a level, a standard. The plural of it is amazinga. Amazinga. Amazinga, levels, standards. This could be a level of water in a tank, a level of annoyance, a grade level at school, a standard of education, like you saw in our story. Let's use the word in a sentence of something that is completely different from what we were talking about in the story. Imovie ekuthiwa yiSarafina yayinabadlali abasezingeni eliphezulu kakhulu. Imovie ekuthiwa yiSarafina yayinabadlali abasezingeni eliphezulu kakhulu. The movie Sarafina had actors who were of a high caliber or of a high standard. Now, the word I used here for actors is abadlali, which loosely translated could be players. But the word that is commonly used for actors is abalingisi. But I don't like it because it's like they are mimicking, they are copying, which is true, yes, because you are, say you are not a doctor, but you're acting as a doctor. Yeah, but it just doesn't sound right to me. It's like they are pretenders or they are fake. I don't know, but that's my issue. Never mind. Uhulumeni. Uhulumeni. Uhulumeni is a government. The plural of that noun is ohulumeni. Ohulumeni, that is governments. So obviously now you see, because the singular one had u as a prefix and the plural one has o as a prefix, that it is a class 1A noun. Let's use this noun in a sentence. Uhulumeni wase Malawi. Uhulumeni wase Malawi. The government of Malawi. Another sentence. Uhulumeni wentando yeningi. Uhulumeni wentando yeningi. A democratic government. Really, to translate this one literally, it's a government of the majority's choice. So, a democratic government. Unya. Unya. Unya is also ulunya. Ulunya. It is one of those nouns that you can say without that extra syllable, which also is similar to its subject concord. For example, the word ilihlo, as in an eye, ilihlo, we can say that word without actually saying li. We can simply say ihlo. Ulunya or unya, it's cruelty. And it is a class 6 noun. It is uncountable, as you can think of it as well if you are English speaking, that you cannot count, you cannot measure cruelty. So it does not have a plural. There is no plural at all for this noun. It is just simply unya or ulunya. Let's use it in a sentence. Uvervoet wayenolunya. Uverwood wayenolunya. So it's one way of saying Verwoerd was cruel, or we could say Uverwoed wayenonya. Uverwoed wayenonya. But notice that on the first sentence we said ulunya. On the second sentence we said unya. In this sentence, of course, we used the noun with the conjunction na, which is to have. So we used it, we have to then put it between the pronoun or subject concord and the noun itself. So the person who is having this thing and then na, and then the last part is the thing that they do have. So the object we are talking about. So we start with the person. In the remote past, of course, it's waye. So he, na, as in to have, and then ulunya or unya. But now ulunya or unya starts with a U. And we have our na that is having an A there. And you know very well now that we cannot have that in isiZulu. And so we blended those two vowels together and it gave us an O. When you blend an A and a U, you have an O. So nonya, nolunya. Ulusha, ulusha. Ulusha is a youth, a young person, whereas the time of life when a person is young is ubusha, ubusha. So I'm trying to just find it to differentiate between those two, because ubusha, yes, is youth, but a time, a period of time, but ulusha is a person, a young person. So let us make a sentence with both words, ulusha and ubusha. They are both nouns. The one is an abstract of the other. Of course, you know by now, abstract nouns start with ub. So let's start with ulusha. Ulusha is a noun. It is a non-countable noun, and it's in class 6. Even though class 6 nouns have a plural, this one does not have that plural. Now let's use it in a sentence. Ulusha lwanamuhla lukhetha ukusebenza kumakhompyutha. Ulusha lwanamuhla lukhetha ukusebenza kumakhompyutha. Today's youth prefer to work with computers. Now let's use ubusha in a sentence. Remember, this one is the abstract. So it is an abstract of ulusha. So it is the time or period of your youth. And this is a class 7 noun. Ubuphathe kahle ubusha bakho. Ungazimosheli ikusasa lakho. Ubuphathe kahle ubusha bakho. Ungazimosheli ikusasa lakho. Care for your youth, or we could say take care of your youth. Don't ruin your future. The last thing I want to say about ulusha, as in the youth of those days, now I'm not talking about any other period of time, but back in those days in the 70s, is this. Ulusha lwango 1976 lwanqoba. Ulusha lwango 1976 lwanqoba. The youth of 1976 conquered. And I'm so proud of them and so very proud to be called their offspring. Ubandlululo is discrimination in English. It is not countable. It is a class 6 noun. Yes, it does look like it wants to be a class 7 noun, but it's actually not an abstract noun. It's just as it is, just discrimination. And it's a class 6 noun. Let's use it in a sentence so you can appreciate what I'm talking about. Abafundi bathi lesi sikole sinobandlululo. Abafundi bathi lesi sikole sinobandlululo. The students say that this school is prejudice or has discrimination. Now, let's use another sentence that is going to use the noun's subject concord or pronoun, so you can appreciate that it is really a class 6 noun. Ubandlululo lubi. Ubandlululo lubi. Lubi. Ubandlululo. I've just swapped those two words apart, around. So we are now saying discrimination is ugly. Do you hear that subject concord? Lu. That is a subject concord for a class 6 noun. Umbhikisho. Umbhikisho. Umbhikisho is a protest. Looking at it as it is, it starts with a UM. So you would want to then say, oh, it's a class 1 noun. But looking at the charts now, or the chart of nouns, you can see that there are 2 classes that start with UM. So now we need to just simply eliminate the one that isn't it. We know that umbhikisho is a protest. But we also know that class 1 is only people, nothing else. Then it means it is not a class 1 noun. It is a class 2 noun. So we can then be able to make it plural. The plural prefix for class 2 nouns is imi, I, am, I. Imi. So now let's apply that. Let's remove the singular prefix and replace it with the plural prefix imi. Now we have imibhikisho. Imibhikisho are protests. Let us make a sentence with this word of ours. Iningi labantu abansundu abaneminyaka esuka ku-40 kuya phezulu bake babhikisha. Iningi labantu abansundu abaneminyaka esuka ku-40 kuya phezulu bake babhikisha. A majority of African people who are above the age of 40 have participated in a protest. Of course, I'm not saying all, I'm saying majority. Ilokishi. Ilokishi. Ilokishi is a township. It's a word we've borrowed from English, the word location in English. I like how the word township is defined and explained on Wikipedia. So I'm going to read that to you just now. In South Africa, the term township and or location refer to the underdeveloped, racially segregated urban areas that from the late 19th century until the end of apartheid were reserved for non-whites, namely Black Africans, Coloureds, and Indians. Of course, the Coloureds, I am saying here, we are talking about a South African race that is called colored. We are not using a derogatory term. So that is the word ilokishi, and the plural of it is amalokishi. It's a class 3 noun. Amalokishi, townships. Amalokishi, locations. Mina ngakhulela elokishini. Mina ngakhulela elokishini. I grew up in a township. Of course, there we are not now using the word as just simply the noun. We are using it as a locative. Iphoyisa. Iphoyisa. Iphoyisa is a police officer, a policeman, a policewoman. The plural of it is amaphoyisa, amaphoyisa, which is a class 3 noun. Let's use it in an example, a sentence. Ubaba wa Andile yiphoyisa. Ubaba wa Andile yiphoyisa. Adding that y before the noun iphoyisa is changing that phrase now to is a policeman. Is a. That's what that y is representing there. So Andile's father is a policeman or a police officer. Isibhamu. Isibhamu. Isibhamu is a gun. Looking at classes of nouns, you can just see that isibhamu falls perfectly into class 4. The plural of it is izibhamu, izibhamu, guns. Let's use that word in a sentence. Actually, we'll use both the singular and the plural. Ngiyazisaba izibhamu. Ngiyazisaba izibhamu. Uma ngibona isibhamu, ngiyabaleka. Ngiyazisaba izibhamu. Uma ngibona isibhamu, ngiyabaleka. I am afraid of guns. When I see a gun, I run. Inhlamvu. Inhlamvu is a bullet, a seed. When I say a seed, I'm talking about a seed of a plant. So inhlamvu is both a bullet and a seed. As you can see, it starts with in, so it is a singular class 5 noun. So the plural is izinhlamvu. Izinhlamvu. That's the plural, bullets or seeds. Let's use the word inhlamvu as a bullet in a sentence example. Inhlamvu yesibhamu yangena yagaxeka emlenzeni wakhe. Inhlamvu yesibhamu yangena yagaxeka emlenzeni wakhe. So the bullet went in and lodged in his leg. And you see there that I added yesibhamu, inhlamvu yesibhamu. It's like now I was clarifying what inhlamvu I am talking about. Am I saying a seed or am I saying a bullet? So inhlamvu yesibhamu. But of course, if the person you're talking to already has context that we are talking about shooting, then you don't have to say yesibhamu. They'll know what you're talking about. Umzimba. Umzimba. Umzimba is a body. The plural of it is imizimba. Imizimba. It's a class 2 noun. Let's use it in a sentence. Nakekela umzimba wakho. Nakekela umzimba wakho. Take care of your body. Isidumbu. Isidumbu. Isidumbu is a corpse, so the body of a deceased person. And it is a class 4 noun. As you can see, it starts with isi. So the plural is izidumbu. Izidumbu. Corpses. Let us use the noun isidumbu in a sentence. Ngizwa kuthiwa izidumbu zifakwa efrijini. Ngizwa kuthiwa izidumbu zifakwa efrijini. Kuyiqiniso lokho na? Kuyiqiniso lokho na? I hear that corpses are put in a fridge. Is that true? Of course, yes, I do know. I was just using this as an example. So that fridge place also is actually called emakhazeni. Emakhazeni. So that's the morgue, the mortuary. This locative, emakhazeni, is actually coming from the word amakhaza. Amakhaza are the cold. Isithombe. Isithombe. Isithombe is a photo. Izithombe. Izithombe. Izithombe are photos, so it's plural. It's a class 4 noun. Let's use it in a sentence. It's going to be a little longish, my sentence, but bear with me. Abantu bakudala babethanda ukushutha izithombe bethinte imbali noma isihlahla. Abantu bakudala babethanda ukushutha izithombe bethinte imbali noma isihlahla. I don't even know why, but I love looking at those old photos. They are so funny. But anyway, so the sentence says, long ago, people liked taking photos, touching a flower or a tree. So this maybe someone can just touch a petal of a flower or a leaf of a tree, but not actually hug the tree or anything. So yeah, it's one of those cute things that I like to see about people from back then. Beautiful photos. Isikhumbuzo. Isikhumbuzo. Isikhumbuzo is a reminder. So when we are talking about a memorial, so whatever it is that you are doing, that whether you're building a museum, so in memory of someone, then that place is isikhumbuzo. It is something that will remind us, a memorial, will remind us of that person or what that person represents. The plural of the word is izikhumbuzo. Izikhumbuzo. So let's use the word isikhumbuzo in a sentence. Sifake itshe lesikhumbuzo ethuneni lababa. Sifake itshe lesikhumbuzo ethuneni lababa. We place the memorial stone, or others say gravestone, on Dad's grave. The word isikhumbuzo, that noun, it is coming from the verb khumbuza, khumbuza, which is to remind, khumbuza. Note that there's a Z, a Z, A at the end. But khumbula, khumbula, khumbula is to remember. So khumbuza, remind, khumbula, remember. Idela kufa. Idela kufa. Idela kufa is one who is prepared to lay down his life for others or for a cause. So when we are now talking about, fighting for our freedom as African peoples in South Africa, we are talking about a freedom fighter. So we could be saying here, Umama Winnie Madikizela Mandela, we could be saying Ubab Krisani, Ubabu Robert Sobukwe, Ubabu Langalbalele, John Dube, Mamu Victoria Mklenge, Babu Nelson Mandela. You see, you get it, right? Amadela kufa. Amadela kufa. People who were prepared to lay down their lives for the cause, for whatever they were fighting for. So we can't just simply say activists. It doesn't quite say what I want to say. So that's why I'm needing to translate it almost literally, that people who are prepared to lay down their lives for the cause, and that cause being our fight for freedom. So a freedom fighter, the plural amadela kufa, and that is a class 3 noun. Now I just want to add that in this one word, idela kufa, we have 2 words there. We've got the verb dela, and we've got the noun ukufa. Dela is to be satisfied and convicted. And ukufa is death. It's A plus 8 noun, death, dying. So you are willing to die, basically, putting that word together. Let us use it in a sentence that we actually really already said. Umama Winnie Madikizela Mandela wayeyidela kufa. Umama uWinnie Madikizela Mandela wayeyidela kufa. Mom or Mrs. Winnie Madikizela Mandela was a freedom fighter. The very last word that I want to share with you is not a noun and it's not a verb. It's really an adjective. Phansi. Phansi. Phansi is low. Phansi is down. And you will then see, if you look at placards or banners on protests in South Africa, you will see this word a lot, because then we say phansi and then followed by the thing that we don't want anymore or we don't want at all. And then lastly, the word is repeated again, phansi. So really it's saying down with whatever, down. We then use with, which is na. So let's think about the word ubandlululo. Ubandlululo is discrimination, prejudice. Now we want to say down with prejudice, down, or down with discrimination, down, or with racism. Phansi no bandlululo, phansi. Phansi no bandlululo, phansi. Just remembering just now, one of the protests that I witnessed when I was very young, it was where the introduction of VAT, value added tax. This was a tax that, and still is, a tax that was being added onto food items. And African people were already earning ridiculously low salaries already anyway. So now having this tax put on them was just really breaking their back, really. And so a lot of the mamas and babas protested this in town in Durban. And I remember they were outside the OK shop, grocery store, and they were protesting outside there. And they were saying, phansi, nevet, phansi. Phansi, nevet, phansi. And of course, we are saying EVAT is an EVAT. And so when you blend the na and that I, we then have ne. So phansi, nevet, phansi. Down with vet, down, or down with VAT, down. I do want to add at the end of this lesson, I do want to add that young man, Mbuyisa Makhubu, who is carrying the lifeless body of Hector Peterson, he overnight became the most wanted person in South Africa, because it was as though he was posing for Baba Semzima's photo and flaunting that they are being killed by the apartheid police. So the police wanted him. So he went to exile, and his family has never, ever seen him after that or heard from him. The pain in his sister's eyes and voice when you hear her speak of this. I will put the link of that video, that interview, in the description box, because I believe it will help you to see and have a more closer look at the impact of what the apartheid struggle did to people and families. It broke families apart because they were willing to fight to ensure that even if they themselves are not ever experiencing this freedom, but the future generations will. And here we are experiencing this freedom, and we are very grateful to them. Ngiyabonga mngani for taking this lesson on the 16th of June, 1976, named the Soweto Youth Uprising. Don't forget to look in the description box for a link to the documents that I will be sharing regarding this story. And then also look in the description box for links that are talking of the grammar that I touched on a bit in this story and the vocabulary. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and to like the video so that we ensure that YouTube shares my videos with more and more people. Ngiyabonga mngani, sale kahle.